Good morning or good afternoon. Hopefully everyone has had a good evening or morning. We're going to go ahead and get started with our 3-day STAAR prep for Algebra 1 end of course. Do remember that the way I like for our students to work the problems is number 1, look at the problem, and then number 2, try to work it before I work it, and then number 3, check to see if the answer is right. So we'll get going. Do remember that these are questions that I pulled from the 2025, 2024, 2023, and previous STAAR release questions. So some of these are good quality questions for you to review, and these are the questions you need to be able to do in order to pass the STAAR assessment. So let's get started. So this is going to be our 3-day STAAR prep review. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so question number 1, which expression is equivalent? So the key word here is equivalent, and the word for equivalent means that it has to be equal. So all you're going to do on Desmos is go ahead and write in square root of 60, not 60, but 600. I'm going to put in square root of 600. And it's 24.49, then I'm going to grab each one of these and I'm going to go ahead and input them and see which one is equal. So I'm going to put in 6 square roots of 10. And of course 18.97 is not equal. That's not an answer. I'm going to go ahead and put the second one on number 2. 10 square roots of 6. 24.49 is equal to 24.49, so that is our answer choice. The answer choice is B. I would recommend also to do C and D, but those are going to be not equal. So let's look at number 2. As part of the exponential function, f is graphed on the grid. So here's the exponential function. Which inequality is best represented as a domain? And remember, the keyword for domain is x. So we are only focusing on the x-axis. So we're going to look at -2, which is the one that we are looking at here. And we know that all the values, it does not include -2. The circle like this means that it's not it's a less than or greater than symbol that's not equal. So if it were to be shaded, then it would be equal on the bottom. But it's got to be less than or greater than. So we look at -2. First of all, domain is x, so I can get rid of b and I can get rid of d. Why? Because it's a y and we're not looking for range, we are looking for domain. So the only answers that can be is x is greater than -2 or x is greater than 1. And if I circled the x, remember that the x right here, which is domain, is -2. So the only one that could be an answer is letter C. And let's go ahead and read it. X is greater than -2. And if we look at all these numbers, the domain is correct. X is greater than -2. It's all the numbers that are -2, not including -2, and everything above -2. So that is the answer. If we look at number 3, which statement about p of x is equal to -7, open parentheses, 4, open parentheses, x? You know, raised to the x, you know that this is an exponential. So again, all you would do is graph them, and then once you graph this, you'll be able to see whether it's a domain and range. So the keywords here, we got to understand that domain is always our x value and range is always our y value. So here are domain, range, domain, and range. So let's go ahead and graph it so we can take a look at the graph. So we have -7x. -7, open parentheses, 4, close parentheses, raised to the x. You put a to the b, raised to the x, and there is your graph. So we're going to look at the first one to see if it's the correct answer. The domain is all real numbers greater than -4. So the domain is all real numbers greater than -4. So it's telling me that it's all these numbers greater than or equal to -4, so that is incorrect. If we look at B, range, which is your y, are numbers less than 0. So if we look at numbers less than 0, if you look at all this graph, they're all less than 0. And that is your range, and that is so far a correct one. The domain is all real numbers less than or equal to 0. So the domain is the x value, and it's telling me that it's all real numbers less than or equal to 0. So we're going to look at that, and the domain is on real numbers less than or equal to 0. But that is false, because once I keep on going, if you're saying that the x is less than or equal to 0, if you look at these are not correct, so this one would be a false one. And range is all real numbers. So again, we're looking at all the numbers going down, so it is all those numbers. And then we have an imaginary line, which is called an asymptote at 0. So y equals to 0 as the asymptote. So that is incorrect, because it's never going to pass the y, because our asymptote is y. So the correct answer is letter B. We look at number 4. This is a simple graphing one, so all we have to do is match the graph. But before we do the matching of the graph, we got to understand that there's a couple points that we got to look at. We're looking at the vertex, and we're looking at the x-intercepts. If we look at the x-intercepts, this x-intercept is 1, 0. This x-intercept, or 0, is -3, 0. So these are your two x-intercepts. We have our vertex as being x is -1 and y is -4. So this is this value right here. If I wanted to get the answer right away without graphing, all I have to do is input those answers into a table, change it to quadratic, and we can get an answer right away. So I'm going to use a table function, and I'm going to go ahead and input -3, not a double negative, just a -3. 0. The next one would be 1, 0. And as you can see on the grid, I'm already starting to see both of the x-intercepts, so I can check to make sure I inputted them correctly. The zeros are -3 and 1. That is correct. And my vertex is x is -1 and y is -4. So I'm going to go ahead and put -1 and -4. And then I'm going to go ahead and push this leaf right here. And then I'm going to get this right here. And I'm going to change it because this is quadratic. This is not a linear. I change it to the quadratic regression. And so there it gives me the answer. And I'm going to push this button right here for the equation. So the answer is y equals to 1x squared plus 2x minus 3. So again, Desmos does all the work for us. I'm going to look at the letters. Well, they all look the same. You don't have to worry about these h of x because of course, that's just a fancy word of saying y. Then I go look at which one's positive 2x. This one's not positive 2x. That's wrong. This one's not positive 2x. That's wrong. This one's not positive 2x. Is wrong. The only answer choice is letter A. So again, I have x squared plus 2x minus 3. And I know that is the correct answer. And Desmos did the work for us. But all I have to know on this one is I have to label the x-intercepts. In order for us to graph a quadratic on Desmos, you need to make sure you have your x-intercepts, your 3 points, or points that are given to you that are very good points. And then you go ahead and put quadratic and you get the answers. Another way of you doing this is actually making sure that you understand that those are the points. And I'm going to go ahead and erase it so you can see it. Those are the points. And if you look at this right here, you can put each one of these and graph it. And for example, I got the answer as it being x squared plus 2x. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of everything else. And then I would take each one individually and graph. And again, I don't have to worry about the h of x. So all I have to do is input the equation. So if I look at A, I would just input x squared positive 2x minus 3. And we look at the vertex, -1, comma, -4. That is correct. I get my x-intercepts as -3, comma, and 1. That is correct, and that is correct. So that is a correct answer. So the answer choice is letter A. If we look at number 4 is another one that can be done on Desmos. So what I would do is I would input this one and then find out which of these graphs matches it on Desmos. So you would input every single one of them, and remember, even if you have other letters, you can input that onto Desmos and let Desmos do the work for you. So I would input that as being 12x square minus 48 x plus 48. Okay, so I have my quadratic. It's right here. So one of the things, I'm going to input every single one of them, and I'm looking for 2 correct answers. So I'm going to go ahead and input the first one, and it is 12, open parentheses, x minus 2, close parentheses, quantity square. And of course, I see that one, and there is one of my answers. Why? Because it overlaps. You look at the overlapping, you see the overlapping, the red, and you see the blue, and they're identical, so that is one of my equivalent. If I check the next ones, and I just input every single one into Desmos, and just to save time, I'm going to input a wrong one, and I'm going to give you the correct one, and then we're going to check it using distributive property. So then that way you can also have another method to check your work. So then I'm going to input, I'm going to say 12, well, not 12, it's going to be -12. So it's going to be -12, open parentheses, x squared, this is the second one, positive 4x, positive 4, close parentheses, and then I'm going to take off the second one. So I'm going to look at this one, and automatically I say that the green one does not overlap with the red one. The original one is the red one. They should be right on top of each other. So this would be a wrong answer. So once again, that one is wrong. And then of course you would input all of them. So the other correct answer choice, and I'm going to go ahead and undo this one, would be our last choice. And let me go ahead and input the last one just to make sure, but I would recommend still to check every single answer to make sure it is correct. So I'll do x squared minus 4x, positive 4, close parentheses, and then I'm going to see that as an answer. I'm going to see this one as an answer. That one is not an answer, and I'm going to see this first one as an answer, and all three should have the same graphs. That makes it equivalent. So the answer choice would be the last one and the first one, for which expression is equivalent. Now, what I would like to do is also be able to check in another format. So I would say I can use FOIL method on this one. I would do 12, open parentheses, x minus 2, quantity square. So this would be also 12, open parentheses, x minus 2, and then I would do x minus 2, close parentheses, close parentheses. So all I did was expand this. I do the FOIL method with the inner. So that would be 12, open parentheses, x squared minus 2x. Then I get rid of that one. And then I do this one, -2 times x is -2x. And then I would distribute -2 times -2 is a positive 4, close parentheses. And then I combine like terms inside. I have x squared minus 4x, positive 4. And then last but not least, I'm going to use distributive property. So if you see that, it does take a lot of work if you know how to do it correctly. I would distribute if I'm going to do that. But I want to use the more simplified one, so I can only distribute 3 times like this. So I would say 12 times x squared is 12x squared. 12 times -4x is -48x. And 12 times positive 4 is a positive 48. And this is a positive. And this would be the same as our original equation. And it is. So that's another way of doing things with the distributive property. If we look at number 6, the function is shown g of x, 6 open parentheses 2, 6 open parentheses 2x plus 7. So all I'm going to do, and the only thing I have to know on this one, is that right here, if we look at the x equals to 20. Why? Because we have the g of x. We know the x is right there. X is right here. And all we're going to substitute in place of this x, we are going to put it 20 instead of x. So we're going to let Desmos do the work for us. I'm going to go ahead and do 6, right here, 6, open parentheses, 2 times, x is 20, so it's times 20, plus 7, close parentheses, and my answer is 282. The answer choice is B. If we look at number 7, it gives you a situation, and then it says which statement best describes our x-intercept. And the keyword here is x-intercept. So I'm going to look at my graph, and I'm going to say, well, what is my x-intercept? That is my x-intercept. My x-intercept is 60. Now, if I look at my x-intercept, automatically B is wrong because the x-intercept is not 60 and D is wrong. So already you have a 50-50 chance to get this one right. So now all we're going to do is read the statement. The x-intercept is 60, which represents the initial balance in dollars of the loan. That is incorrect because our initial balance would be way up here above 25,000, and that is not my x-intercept. That is my y-intercept, so that one would be wrong. If I read letter C, the x-intercept is 60, which represents the number of monthly payments needed to, what would it be? Needed to repay the loan. So I'm going to look at that number of monthly payments, and I see my loan decreasing, and that is the number of monthly payments in order for me to repay my loan, which is 60. So the answer is C. The next one that we're going to do, this one's a repeat on number 8. No, we haven't done number 8. So we're going to go ahead and do number 8. So the question at hand is which expression is a factor? And remember that the key word for factor, if we look at factor, it has to pass through the x-intercept or it's got to pass through my 0. So whenever I see my x and y axis, I'm going to get a U shape like this with my original. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking for these x-intercepts, and they disappeared, but that would be, these would be my x-intercepts right here. Let me see if I can do them in green. Those are my x-intercepts. So we're going to find a line that passes directly through the x-intercept. It has to pass through either one. It doesn't matter which one it passes through, as long as it passes through an x-intercept. So first I'm going to go ahead and input this into Desmos, which is 30x squared minus 4x minus 16. And then I have my graph, I have my U shape, and of course I'm looking at my x-intercepts. So my x-intercepts, and I want to make sure that I can see my x-intercepts very, very clearly. My x-intercept is right here, and my x-intercept is right there. I want to check that I graphed it correctly, and I did. So now I'm going to check every single one. And remember, it has to pass through my x-intercept for it to be a factor. So I'm going to put 5x plus 4. I look at that. Does it pass through my x-intercept? It does not. The line has to pass through one of my x-intercepts, so this would not be an answer. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there, and I'm going to go ahead and unclick the blue. I'm going to go ahead and put 3x minus 2. And again, it does not pass through. It almost passes, but it doesn't, so that is not an answer. I'm going to go ahead and put C. I'm going to unclick this one. And I'm going to go ahead and put another one, which is C, 5x minus 4. And there it is. It passes straight through my x-intercept. My answer choice is letter C. Why? Because it does pass straight and direct through my x-intercept at 0.8, comma 0. It passes through one of my zeros. And of course, on the STAAR test, I would recommend for you to go ahead and check every single one of them. And of course, if you don't find an x-intercept, most likely it's an inputting error. So I would make sure that you inputted everything correctly. So let us go to number 9. If we look at number 9 is an exponential function. Why is it an exponential function? Because it is a Pac-Man open exponential graph. And the other reason is because you have a tiny, tiny little x right here. So this is called an exponential function. So remember that I'm going to input this into Desmos, and I'm going to say 5, open parentheses. You're going to put 1 divided by 3, space. You're going to put the space, or you can click here, close parentheses, and then you're going to raise a to the b, raise to the x, and it gives us our graph. And we have our graph, and if you look at the graph, it's in black, and automatically just by looking at that graph, we can eliminate A and we can eliminate B. So then it's either C or D. So those are two things that you can already see. You can get a 50-50 chance of getting this one right. Next, I'm going to look at some features on this graph. And one of the features I like to look at is my y-intercept. My y-intercept is 0, 5. So I'm going to see if I can see it a little bit more clearer. The y-intercept here is 1. So that would be automatically wrong. So this one is wrong, double wrong. And if I look at this one, and I'm going to change my color to blue, my y-intercept is 5. My y-intercept is 5. The correct answer choice on this one is D. We're going to go ahead and look at number 10. So that one, let me make sure I have the right one. Yes. So we're going to go ahead and look at number 10. Which expression is equivalent to 2m to the 4th and 5m to the 8th? So I'm going to show you two methods on how to do this. One through Desmos and the second one through just the regular power of a power. So here I'm just going to, this multiplication, I'm going to multiply it. 2 times 5 is 10. And I'm going to keep the same base. And I'm going to take these little exponents and I'm going to add them. So 4 plus 8 gives me 12. So my correct answer choice is letter B. Now, looking at this, I can also do this on Desmos, the power to a power. So I'm going to go ahead and clear it. Instead of these m's, I'm going to rewrite it into Desmos, and I'm going to put 2x to the 4th. And this can work for anything that has 2 variables, 3 variables, 4 variables. It works the same thing because all you're doing is matching the graph, and it will work. And all you're going to do is, instead of putting these m's, you're going to put x's all through there. So first of all, I'm going to change all the m's to x's, and I'm going to change all my answer choices to x's. So I'm going to go ahead and open parentheses. I'm going to put 2x squared. No, 2x, and how do I raise it? A to the b, raised to the 4th, close parentheses by putting the space. And then I'm going to open parentheses again, and then I'm going to put 5. X, a to the b, raised to the 8th. I'm going to put the little 8. Then I'm going to put the space right here, close parentheses, and then I have my graph. Whether it being any type of graph, it gives you a graph. So what I would do is I would input every single one of these and find out which one matches. So I would input, I know the answer choice is B, so I'm going to show you how to input A and B. So all I would do is rewrite this as 7x to the 12th, and I would rewrite this as 10x to the 12th. And remember, we're looking for an equivalent. An equivalent means equal. So all I would do is put it in, instead of putting the m's, I would put the x's. So I would put 7x raised to the AB to the 12. And then it kind of looks like it. And I would be fooled. Sometimes it kind of looks like it, but if you really look at it, it's not really on top of the graph. It almost is, but it has to be identical. So if you zoom it out, it does look identical, but if you really zoom it in, you see them apart, this would not be a correct answer. So then next, I would check the second one. So I would unclick this blue one, and I would just input 10x a to the b raised to the 12. And this works on practically everything. So it looks kind of identical. So I want to make sure it's the correct one. I can zoom in. I can zoom out. I can take this one off. I can put this one in. And I can take it out. And that is your answer. Why? Because they are identical to each other. So remember, in order for them to be equivalent, they have to be right on top of each other. If we look at 11, 11 is a good question. The graph of the quadratic function is shown on the grid. Which answer choice best represents the graph? And of course, you can pause the video, try it out, and let's see if you understand it. Again, I need to identify what my zeros are. I have this one, and my 0 is 2, 0. And then I have this one. My other 0 is negative 10, 0. I also need to identify my vertex. My vertex is about right here. My vertex is about negative 4 is my x. And negative 9 is my y. So all they're asking for is x-intercepts and y-intercepts. And of course, our y-intercept is kind of like, it looks like 0, negative 5, as it being my y-intercept. And of course, I can put this into decimals and figure out, okay, is it correct or not? So which two can we eliminate? We know the U shape has two x-intercepts. And I'm going to, right there. These are the two x-intercepts. So automatically, I can get rid of A, and I can get rid of C. Why? Because it only has one x-intercept or one 0. So the answer choice is either B or D. So if I see all these and I say, well, some are upside down, some are not, and some, I might do a mistake, I might not, but I got to make sure it is negative 10 is the x and y is a 0. So negative 10 is the x. This one would be wrong because it's upside down. So the correct answer choice would be D. And once again, I need to show you how to do this on Desmos. By checking the graphs, I think you can make sure that you get it correct. So all I would do is say, well, what is negative 10, 0, close, and then I could put label. And I look for it on the graph, and it labels it. It should label it for me. There it is. So not only does Desmos do the graphing and give you a quadratic, gives you a linear, it also graphs for you. So I did a label. If I take off the label, it doesn't have a label, it just has a graph. If I just want to put a label, I just put a label. If I want to put a point, I can put a point. So automatically, I know this one is correct because it matches. This matches. And if I would say, well, I can get confused and say it's 0, negative 10. Well, let me take off my label and let me go ahead and take off my point. And I put open parentheses and I put 0, negative 10. close parentheses, and I want to have a label. And I say, well, these are my x-intercepts. There's negative 10 comma 0 right there. And where is it? Oh, wait, it's right here. So you see how it's wrong? This is a wrong answer. So again, also Desmos does do the graphing for us. Okay, if we look at number 12, the question at hand is, which statement is true? And they're asking about zeros. And the only thing you need to know here is that 0 is our x-intercepts. So the only thing we do here is we graph. And remember the f of x, you may want to put the f of x in. You do not put that f of x in. All you have to do is input this quadratic into Desmos and let Desmos do the work for you. So I'm going to put 4x squared minus 36x positive 81. I'm going to go ahead and look at it. I have my x-intercept. Oh, wow, I only have one x-intercept. So the zeros are 3/4 and negative 27. That would be wrong because we only have one x-intercept. The zeros are this. That would be wrong. The zeros are positive 9/2 and negative 9/2. That would be wrong because that gives me two zeros. And the only zero is 9/2. That would probably be correct. So once again, I can input 9/2 into Desmos. And I put 9 divided by 2. And it gives me 4.5. And this is the same as 4.5. And that's the same as 4.5. I want to turn this back into a fraction. All I do is press the fraction bar here. And it changes it back to a fraction. Change it back to a decimal. Changes back to a fraction. Changes back to a decimal. Matches right there. The answer choice is D. If we look at number 13, which expression is equivalent? So you can try that one. Remember that I'm going to go ahead and change everything to x's. So I'm going to go ahead and input into Desmos as 2x plus 5, close parentheses, 3x minus 2, close parentheses. So I would input that one into Desmos, and all these right here, I would just change them to x's instead of putting the a's. I'm just going to change them to x's, and whichever the graph matches is the correct answer. So I'm going to go ahead and input this one as open parentheses, 2x, positive 5, close parentheses, open parentheses, 3x, minus 2, close parentheses, and then I have my quadratic right here, and I want to also enlarge it so I can make sure that they are overlapping. I'm going to go ahead and put the first one in, and I'm going to show you how to input that one into Desmos. It's going to be 17x minus 10. And just by looking at that, it does not overlap. So what does it mean by not overlapping? If it doesn't overlap, then it's not a correct answer. And the correct answer most likely is going to be C or D. I'm going to go ahead and input C. I can also input B if you want to, but I'm going to just skip it and input C for the sake of time. And I would recommend for you to practice on every single one to make sure you get the correct answer. 6x squared, positive 11x, minus 10. And just by looking at that, I know it doesn't overlap. The black, well, first of all, I need to get rid of this one. Okay, what does overlap? It's looking like the black overlaps with the green, and the green overlaps with the black. I gotta examine it closer, and it does overlap. So once again, Desmos has done the work for us, and I'm checking it very thoroughly, and yep, they do overlap. So the correct answer is letter C. The second method of doing this, you can also do the FOIL method, and I'm going to do the FOIL method because this is already written out. If you want to use the A's, you can use the A's. If you want to use the X's, you can use the X's. So I would just do a double distributive right here, and that would be 2x plus 3x times 3x would be 6x squared. And then I have 2x times negative 2x, 2 is negative 4x. And then I'm done with this, and then I go on to the next one, and in blue, I'm going to do it in green. So positive 5 and a 3x would be positive 15x. And then positive 5 times negative 2 is a negative 10. Then I'm going to combine my cows with my cows. I have a negative 4x's and a positive 15x's. I have negative 4 cows and a positive 15 cows is 6x squared. We have positive 11x and minus 10. And if I look at this, it needs to match, pretty much it needs to match the original equation. And of course, it should match this right here, and it does. And I know it is correct. So that is a correct answer. Okay. Let me go ahead and clear it. Let me go to number 14. If you look at 14, it's also a power raised to a power. I can also input this on decimals, but what I would recommend to do with this one is I would recommend just to multiply these and get a decimal and then get each fraction and find out which decimal matches. So all I would do is input 3/7 into decimals and let decimals do the work. 3/7 right there. And then I'm going to put my space, and then I'm going to multiply times 2. And that gives me a 0.8514. So I already have the decimal for this. So now I'm going to check every single one of these, and I'm just going to input them into decimals and let decimals do the work. So I'm going to input x, and then I'm going to raise it to the 6. Well, no, I don't have to do that. I can just put in the fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and put the fraction in. 6 divided by 14. That one doesn't match. That would be a wrong answer. Then I put in the second one, and I just put 17 over 7. That one doesn't match. That would be a wrong answer. Then I put 6 over 7. And there it is. That's the answer, and that one does match. I can also input this into decimals and then input every single one, and whichever one graph matches is equivalent. And equivalent is equal. So once again, there's a lot of ways to do the problem. Sometimes there's even 3 ways to do the problems. Whichever you think is easier, that is the method that you are going to choose to do. So for those of you that want to know how to input something like this into decimals, all I would do is I would open parentheses. I would just type it in, x, and then how do I get the little fraction? I put AB, and I put 3 divided by 7. And then I'm going to put the space right here, or I'm going to put the arrow. Then I'm going to close my fraction here, and I'm going to get this square, so I can do this a to the second, or I can do the AB and put to the 2, and this gives me our graph. So it gives me a V shape, and then of course you just find out which one matches this graph. If you look at number 15, 15 is an easy one because there's 2 keywords you have to know. You got to understand that it is a linear relationship and that there is a vocabulary that says rate of change. And the key word for rate of change is, of course, our slope. Slope is rate of change is slope. And linear is, of course, a line. It tells you this is linear. So this is a simple inputting it into decimals and let decimals do the work. So that is a table. So I would just input that into decimals and put in these values, and I have to keep them matched up. 520. I will put 728. I will put 11, 44, and I will put 14, 56. I'm going to go ahead and push my leaf. I know it's linear, so I'm going to leave it in linear regression. My slope right here is y equals to 4x plus 0. And if I look at this equation, y equals to 4x plus 0, my slope in blue is the letter next, or my rate of change or slope is this right here. So it is 4 as being my slope or my rate of change. And again, the only one that is the answer is letter H. If I look at number 16, which statement about the function is true? And once again, all I'm going to do is input this into Desmos and let Desmos do the work. And I got to understand also that domain is equal to my x and my range is equal to my y. That's all I have to know. So I'm going to go ahead and input this into Desmos and let Desmos get me a graph. So I'm going to put 5x quantity square to the square minus 20x positive 12, and there is my graph. So I'm going to look at my graph and I'm going to check to see what. And something very unique about this graph is that anytime you have a domain of a graph like this that keeps on expanding, your domain is all real numbers. So just by knowing that the domain is all real numbers, because the U shape is going to continue to expand outward like this. So just by knowing that, I can get rid of C and I can get rid of A, because if it would have said my domain is all real numbers, then that would be correct. Now I have to check which one is correct. The range, the n of x is just a fancy word of saying y. So once again, is n of x greater than or equal to negative 8, or is n of x greater than or equal to 12? So the way I would do that one is I already got rid of these two. I got rid of that one as domain, and I got rid of that one as your domain. Now all I do is look at my vertex. My vertex, my x value is 2. That's my axis of symmetry. And my range is negative 8. So I'm going to look at my graph and I'm going to say, well, negative 8, the only one that is negative 8 is that one. So that is my answer. So I'm going to look at my graph and I'm going to say, well, all my y's, which is my range, negative 8, is bigger than anything bigger than negative 8. So I'm going to read it. My n of x, which is my y, is greater than or equal to negative 8. Again, that is correct. So the correct answer choice is letter B. On 17, they're asking me which graph represents y as a function of x. So the key word here is function. And all you have to do is do the vertical line test. And if it does give you 2 points or 3 points or 4 points, and a vertical line is a line that goes up and down. So I'm going to do my vertical line test on f. So I'm going to do my vertical line test, and it hits 2 points. So this is not a function. Why? Because a function can only have one independent x value. I'm going to do my vertical line test, and it hits the point 1, 2, 3 times. So again, this is not a function. This is not a function. Remember, my vertical line test, which is this line right here, has to hit my graph only one time. So if I look at G, is that one a function? So I'm going to do my vertical line test. It hits right here, hits right here. That would not be a function because it only has to hit on one point. And this one on J, I'm going to do my vertical line test. It hits at 1 point. I'm going to do my vertical line test. Hits at 1 point. I'm going to do my vertical line test anywhere on this graph, and it's only going to hit at 1 point. So once again, that is my correct answer, letter J. If you look at number 18, 18 is a copycat of one that we already did, so that is a repeat. If I look at number 19, which graph best represents a quadratic function with a range, and the keyword is range, and the range is your y value, of greater than or equal to net positive 3. And that is important right there. So I'm going to look at my y's here. I'm going to say, is this a positive 3? It's got to be greater than or equal to 3. So my vertex has to be at 3. This would be wrong because my vertex is not at 3. Here, this would be wrong because my vertex is at negative 3. That would be wrong. So automatically, I already have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. Now I'm going to look at this. Is my y 3? Yes. And is my y 3 here? Yes. So now I'm going to look at both of those graphs and I'm going to read the statement. And the statement says, the range of all real numbers greater than or equal to 3. So if it's greater than or equal to 3, it's got to be this and anything above 3, all the way to infinity. So the answer choice is letter J because it's greater than. This would be less than. So this one would be less than, and this would be greater than. So that is the reason it is letter J. If I look at number 20, 20 is a repeat to another problem that we've done. So I'm going to go ahead and move right along to number 21. An exponential function is graphed with the grid. So again, they give you a function and I got to look at the distinctions. I have to look at my grid, and that right there gives me a y-intercept at 1. So first step is I'm going to graph each one, and whichever one has a y-intercept of 1 and has a graph that looks like this is the correct answer. So all I'm going to do is graph every single one. Now these, I don't have to worry about them because they're just y's. So we don't have to put in the y. So I would first put in the first one. I'll put 0.25. Close parentheses, do the AB, raise it to the x, and I'm going to check to see if that is my y-intercept. Well, so far, this one, letter A, looks correct. So possibly it could be letter A. So let me check the other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and take away this graph. I'm going to leave it there so I can recheck it if I need to. I'm going to go ahead and put the next one. So I'm going to put 2, open parentheses, 0.5. Close parentheses, AB to the x, and I'm going to check to see if my y-intercept is 1. So is my y-intercept 1? Automatically, this is wrong. Because remember, my y-intercept has to be 1. So that is an incorrect problem. If I look at the next one, I'm going to go ahead and take this one out, and I'm going to go ahead and input 1.25. Close parentheses, put the AB, raise it to the x, and automatically I know this is an upside down graph. It's not the same correct direction, so this one would be wrong automatically. And if I look at letter D, I'm going to go ahead and take away this one, and I'm going to go ahead and input 25. Close parentheses, AB, raised to the x. I'm going to look at my intercept. That is correct, but again, the orientation is wrong. That is wrong. It's in a different direction. So the answer choice is letter A. If you look at 22, if you want to try that one, remember that this is a distributive property, but why do you need to do distributive property if you can just make sure the graphs match? So what I would do is I would replace all the G and H's with X's. So it would be written, this right here would be written as 24xx minus 12x squared positive 18x. So instead of writing all the G's and the H's, you can just put X's. So I'm going to go ahead and input that into decimals, and I can input every single one, and whichever one matches the graph, that is your answer. So I'm going to go ahead and do the first one or the second one, and hopefully we get an answer. So I would put the original one, which is 24xx minus 12x quantity, well, square, not quantity square, positive 18 x, and there is my quadratic. Now I'm going to go ahead and input the first one and check to see. So instead of the g, I'm going to put x's. So I'm going to put 6x open parentheses 4x minus 12x positive 18 close parentheses. Automatically, I already know that is not equivalent. Why? Because they're not even on top of each other. They got to be equal. They got to be identical. So automatically, this would be a wrong answer. So just by inputting it into decimals, and then I would take off my red one because I already proved that this is wrong. And I'm going to go ahead and input the second one. So I'm going to go ahead and input this one, and most likely that one's going to be wrong. It's either C or D. So I'm going to go ahead and input, let me try, let me see which one is the right answer. Oh yeah, it's probably C or D. I believe it's C. But let's input C. So instead of, and just one more time so I can show you, instead of putting this, you're going to put 6x open parentheses 4x minus 2x positive 3. That's all you're doing. You're just replacing everything with x's. And remember, the graphs have to match. So let me try that one. If it isn't that one, and most likely it is D. So I'm going to go ahead and put 6x open parentheses 4x minus 2x positive 3 close parentheses. And would you look at that? I think that is the correct answer. So you want to zoom it in, remember, and you want to make sure you take them off, you put it back on, and that is your correct answer. The correct answer is C. And of course, if I wanted to, I can also use distributive property to check it. And I can use my distributive property to distribute here, and that's 24GH. Distribute here, and it's negative 12G squared. And distribute here, and it gives me positive 18G. And so this one needs to match the top one. So I look at it, and it does match the top one. So letter C is correct. And of course, you can just check it via distributive property, but once again, decimals even does this for you. Okay, let me go ahead and delete it. Let me go on to number 23. 23 is the same thing. All you're going to have to do is match it. So first step is looking at the graph. I'm going to look at my 0, and my 0 here is negative 1 comma 0. My 0 here is 3 comma 0. I'm going to look at my vertex, and my vertex, the x is 1 and the y is 4. I'm going to look at my axis of symmetry, and my axis of symmetry is the x value of my vertex, which is x equals to 1. So I have all my features. So which statement is true? So I'm going to look at the first one. The function has 3 zeros. That is incorrect because I have 1 0 here and I have 1 0 here. The correct answer would have been it has only 2 zeros, and that is wrong. I'm going to look at B. The maximum value of this function is 3. Well, it does have a maximum, but neither one of these is 3. So the maximum is either 1 or 4. So the maximum is not 3. That is incorrect. The vertex of the graph of the function is 4, 1. That is almost correct, but it is wrong because they mix them up for you. And this would be a common error that is incorrect because it's actually 1/4. You can also input those into decimals. And the equation of the axis of symmetry is x equals to 1. Remember, my axis of symmetry is the x value of my vertex, and the x value is x equals to 1. So my axis of symmetry is 1, and it cuts my U shape in half, and that is the correct answer, letter D. If you look at number 24, that is also an easy one. All we're going to go ahead and do is match, and we're going to input. So I'm going to just give you 7 square roots of 45. That gives me 46, and most likely it is either A, B, C, or D. I'm going to go ahead and try A to see if it's correct. So I'm going to put 12 square roots of 3. That is not correct, so I'm going to change it and make this a 35. That is incorrect, so A and B are wrong. Then it's either C or D. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it just to make it cleaner, and I'm going to try the last one, then I'm going to try the next one. So the 10 square roots of 5, 22 is wrong, so most likely the answer choice is D. If I look at it, I'm going to replace this one with 21. And they are equal. That is the correct answer. And our last problem for today with this review is, of course, which function is equivalent. So all I'm going to do is graph each one and find out which one is equivalent. And if I want to graph them all at the same time, which I'm going to do, I could graph them all at the same time and then take off the colors and then go ahead and do it. So this one, I am going to graph them all at the same time. I'm not going to pay attention to the graph. I'm going to just graph, and then I'm going to get my answers at the very end by taking off all the colors and staying with my original one. So that is the first one. Then I'm going to input every single one of these into every single column. So my first one is 3x. It's going to be 3x minus 7. Close, open parentheses, 2x minus 3. Close. I'm going to go to my next one. 3, open, x minus 1. Close, open, 2x minus 7. Close. I'm going to go ahead and input my next one. It's going to be open parentheses, 6x minus 7. Close, open, x minus 3. Close, and then I'm going to do the last one. 3, open, x minus 7. And then I open parentheses, 2x minus 1. I'm going to close, and then I'm going to take off all the colors. Then I'm going to look at my graph. I'm going to find it. It's right there. And then I'm going to check to see which one matches. So then I'm going to test the first one out. Looks like we got a winner. So our first one looks like it is correct. But now that I graphed them, I'm going to go ahead and check every single one of them. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to put this one in. Okay, that one's too wide. The next one, that one's too wide. The next one, that one's way over there. So once again, that is our correct answer. So the answer choice is A. So once again, I hope this math has helped you. I hope our Desmos calculators has helped you. And once again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Have an amazing day. And thank you for taking the time. Once again, I recommend for you to watch the video, pause it, try the problem, and then restart it, and then pause it, and then restart it. Have a great day.